Let's talk about how we got here and what precipitated this crisis. This is how the New York Times reported it this week about a visit to Georgia back in July by you. During a private dinner in Tbilisi, Mrs. Rice's aide said she warned President Mikhail Saakashvili of Georgia not to get into a military conflict with Russia, that Georgia could not win. She told him in no uncertain terms that he had to put a non-use of force pledge on the table, according to a senior administration official who accompanied Ms. Rice to the Georgian capital. In the days since the simmering conflict between Russia and Georgia erupted into war, Bush administration officials have been adamant in asserting that they warned the government in Tbilisi not to let Moscow provoke it into a fight, and that they were surprised when their advice went unheeded. Did Georgia provoke this crisis?
This crisis has been going on for, as I said, more than a decade. It has been a hot zone and a volatile zone where there have been skirmishes over a significant period of time. It is absolutely the case that we have cautioned all parties against the use of force. In fact, I also talked to the Russians repeatedly in this period about the railway troops that they were bringing in, about reinforcing their peacekeepers, about overflying Georgian territory. So this had been a zone of conflict. We were trying to resolve it peacefully.
But this is a close U.S. ally, and you warned them, don't provoke the Russians. Don't do this. We have a lot of influence over them.
David, as I've said, you can't just start with, we told the Georgians this. We also told the Russians not to engage in certain activities that they were engaging in. This was a zone of conflict. We were trying to do it peacefully. But whatever happened before this, once this broke out in South Ossetia, it could have been confined to South Ossetia. Rather than confine it to that and deal with the facts on the ground there, the Russians decided to go deeper into Georgia, to bomb Georgian ports, to bomb Georgian military installations, to go into the city of Gori. And so it was that escalation that got us to the point that we're at now.
Given that escalation, Secretary Rice, do you understand why there are some within the Georgian leadership who feel betrayed by the U.S.? Did they have an unreasonable expectation that the U.S. would come in guns blazing, as it were, to protect them?
I don't think anybody had an expectation that the United States was going to use military force in this conflict. But we need to keep the focus on the culprit here. And the culprit here is that Russia overreached, used disproportionate force against a small neighbor, and is now paying the price for that because Russia's reputation as a potential partner in international institutions, diplomatic, political, security, economic, is frankly in tatters. When President Medvedev gave that very forward-leaning speech just a few weeks ago, saying that Russia was going to be a modern state, it was going to look to Western institutions, it was going to be integrated into the international system, well, if this is what he had in mind, that's a real problem. And I think now that vision that Medvedev put on the table is really in serious doubt.